today I have a question I like to pose to the little community here, or wherever this ends up being tossed around, and that is concerning similarities in our customs. And it's a question I don't have an answer to, and I think the answer is important. I just don't know why, but I have a feeling, a gut instinct, call it a hunch. When one travels, there are things that, to execute a successful travel plan, it is in one's best interest to inform yourself about what you're going to get into, what sort of customs you're going to run up against. I don't just mean passports and things like that in language, the obvious ones, but I mean things like what's the tip percentage for a bellhop or a bartender? Is there a protocol for public transportation regarding courtesies? Do your electronics have the same voltage? What exactly is meant by having a drink with someone, sharing a toast? Little things like this, because we're different. One might argue that this diversity is one of the more enticing reasons why people enjoy traveling. It's nice to get away from your comfort zone. It's nice to see how other people live in other parts of the world. It's nice to see the different vehicles, the different houses, what side of the road do they drive on, etc., etc. And I would say that for the most part, styles vary greatly, whether you are in different parts of the country, different parts of different nations, and different nations entirely. Now, there is an area of overlap in the realm of practicality where you're going to find many similarities. Things like pencils, water glasses, light posts. These are things that, for the most part, are going to be recognizable and the same everywhere you go. Matter of practicality. But in the areas of whimsy and art, well, those areas should not be similar at all. In fact, they should be wide fluctuations. So it is then when we do find something that is strikingly similar, in fact the same, in dozens, if not hundreds, if not every country and town across the realm, something that we're told is simply a matter of taste in art, that should warrant a bit of a curious investigation. And of course what I'm talking about is the Equestrian statue. This often bronze, often detailed and formidable rendering of a person on a horse, often with an outstretched arm, usually in town square, having it sometimes on a fountain, sometimes on a pedestal, and we find that these are everywhere, and I mean everywhere, which is what I'll be displaying to you today. And I just made a random song, and I'm going to stay out of the way. Just want you to, if you're inclined, look these over. There are far too many to cover all of them. At last count, I think I got 1,235 around the realm, and you'll see why this is this is significant. And I have some ideas, some theories, but rather than plant some ideas in your head, let's just have a little brainstorm session here, and you tell me if you think this is totally normal, just a custom that we all have, honoring some local legend, or if you think there may be something more to this. I think I have an answer. I don't know if it's a correct one, but I do have an answer, and I think it may compel you. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the mystery of the equestrian statue. Go. Alright. Well, if you made it this far, I tried to distract. I tried not to distract with filling your head with ideas of mine, and hopefully it worked. And at least as far as you were just able to kind of brainstorm and think about what this could possibly mean. All these statues that I'm seeing. It's remarkable. And as I sat there one dark, gloomy evening in the winter in a small town, being stared down upon by a massive bronze horse sculpture, um, it was foreboding, and I got a sense of sort of a doom about it. So here's my thoughts. Logically, it seems functional. It seems like there was something to do with the fountain, the town square, the electric grid, and it being some sort of a rod, some sort of a charged device, an antenna per se, often uplifting something, and the fact that they're made of this bronze or this copper, or it turns green after a while, similar to the domes. There might be something there, and maybe that's just it. Maybe it was just tech that they sort of hid, or it was the way we see that these old world people. What they seem to do is everything's beautiful. They spare no expense or effort. So while it could be just a garish, ugly antenna, they make a beautiful tower. It could be something like that, where they're simply taking a hero, a local legend, and making it part of the energy grid. It very well could be that. And maybe it's dual purpose. Maybe it does that as well as something else. And maybe it's not as much functional as it is, say, a mockery. When I think about horseback riding, and I think about horses in particular, if you run this little exercise through your mind, you'll catch my drift. The sight of a monkey on the back of a dog, whenever you see a little monkey, a little gibbon, and the dog's been saddled, it's hilarious. For some reason, it's just hilarious. A monkey riding a dog. But we don't think that often when we say human riding a horse. We don't. There's an element of superiority, I guess, kind of ingrained in us, most of us, that it seems much more natural, or at least a symbiotic relationship. But it wasn't really. I mean, I bet no horse really wanted to be driven into battle, as we allegedly did by the tens of thousands. And some of these pictures, most of these sculptures, men are fighting clearly from the backs of them, sometimes leaning over them, blasting a pistol, right next to their ears. And you got to realize how often that must have happened, how terrified these horses must have been as they're ridden into battle, confused and scared, and the smell of blood, and really kind of an awful thing, what we did. And as a matter of fact, what they used to call it is breaking horses, because you were breaking their spirit. You're breaking these wild stallion spirit in order to allow it to ride you. Now they don't use those terms. It's a little more humane, and I understand that people love their horses and they get along great with their horses. They treat them well. I understand that. I'm not trying to accuse everyone of riding horseback as being some abuser. I'm just saying the idea of taking something that biologically we are considered to be animals. I don't know. I know that it's all across the board on that. I'm not trying to say that we are the same or that I don't. That's for you to decide about the soul and all that, and how far we can compare ourselves to animals in that regard. I'm not trying to go there. What I'm saying is that whether or not you believe a particular way about horses, there are plenty of people that didn't, and they would break their spirit and they would ride them and they would use them, domesticate them. So in a sense, for a horseman to be in the town square is almost sort of I can view it as maybe a sort of a snide comment on the way that perhaps we are being ridden by a being that feels that they are superior to us. And so I liken to maybe think that these horses, or maybe the domes, maybe they start out as the domes of these re-outfitted city halls in town square, most of them missing the dome. Some of them still retaining it, but most of them missing the dome. Like that in that photograph right there, 4 or 5 domes missing. And they take the green copper and they melt it down, soften it, and they hammer it into the shape of something that's a mockery. And they put it in the courtyard. And it's a mockery of, it's a tongue-in-cheek. They pick some local legend, some fake history they've made, and they they take away your energy device there. See, like in this one here, see that green dome up there? They take that down, they soften it up, they smash it and hammer it into the shape of a horse with a fake character they made riding the back of it, and you're the horse and you don't know it, and they're laughing at us. Maybe that's how it started, and then the tradition just got carried on. I don't know, just an idea. Well, what I really think it is, and maybe it could be all of those things, but I think it's more like this. When you're in the mafia, you got control of a town, you control the newspaper, you control the major stores, the trucker, the supply routes, the bank, the politicians. You got this little town in your pocket, right? And for a really complicated system to work, criminal or organized crime to work, you would need that. You would need an organized system like that in order for it to be a success. And we know they work with these families, and we know many of these families, these human families, have converted and sold their soul and are betraying all of us. Yeah, we know that. We know that. And we're starting to figure out who some of them are. Some of them are really obvious, some of them less so. Now, how do you know if you are, say, traveling the countryside in the 1800s and 1900s? How do you know if the area that you're coming to is under your control or not? Usually there'd be some flag hung up, but if it's something sneaky, but you don't want to just, a flag, kind of obvious. And besides, it doesn't take much effort. You can fake a flag. I mean, I can go wave a flag of a different nation if I want to trick someone. They really gonna believe I'm French if I fly a French flag? No, I don't think so. But a statue, a bronze statue in the middle of the courtyard. Now that's would imply control. That would imply that you controlled the town. You had enough sway over the influence, the funds, and the opinions of the people that you could convince them to sign off on or to agree with funding or allowing the installation of an equestrian statue in the middle of your town square with a local legend or whatever it took, a local hero or martyr. And just so there's no mystery that this town is under control, this is their calling card. And it's a tongue-in-cheek reference to us being domesticated and broken, and it's a calling card to each other that this town, this area, is under our control. Just an idea, but it's got to serve some purpose. There's some reason why they're here everywhere. There's some reason why they are everywhere. Maybe it's a combination of those reasons, I don't know, but I'd be curious to know what you thought. I really would. It's an interesting thing, Many of them very warlike, many of them very unfriendly. Who's the one in your town square? What does that hero or local legend mean to you? The one here doesn't mean anything to me. Every small town has them. Hand in hand with this stuff, this old world architecture, often very symmetrical, leading to the idea that it's some sort of a part of the grid somehow. And it may be, but something about the fact that it's a horse being ridden to me implies a mockery. That which they know they have placed their stamp on us. And maybe that's why when we get in these riots and these protests, almost by default, we tear down these statues, just almost as just something ingrained in us as something that we used to need to do. We used to need to do that to take our town back. Here, of course, 1,235 equestrian statues. That's a lot. It's enough to have 5 in every single nation. More than that, 10 in each nation. Now, some nations have tons. Argentina has 40 or 50. Many of these nations have. I couldn't adequately represent all of them. It'd be impossible. It was impossible. As you can tell, it's a long, long video. And this is me after me trying to pare it down and distract you with music and all sorts of stuff. So, anyway, tell me what you think, and I'll see you soon.